Welcome to For the Record, a podcast by the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus, hosted by Senator Brian Pettyjohn, Senator Eric Buckson, Chief of Staff Deanna Killen, and Communications Director Matt Revel. This is For the Record.
Well, all the votes against the Orioles, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They swept the Orioles. I meant to put a broom in your office when I came back in. I did have.
I think
that
so
thought.
far, we played
sweep.
Miami twice. I think I think we won both. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So I guess I was going to say on that note, but I can't really think of a good segue into. Well, on that note, we just met. So we just came back from. Nope, we're not going to start
break.
That's it.
On Bell break. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Deanna, for
money
stepping in
break.
for me. Yeah, the money break. So, General Assembly's in session for 2 more weeks after this week. But it was 3 weeks in May. Then Joint Finance Committee
Has a 2-week markup.
Yeah, markup.
Then
Are we going to take 2
The
weeks?
question becomes, is it going to be 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Now, the first year I was here, went like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I distinctly remember going, because you're trusting some of the experienced ones. Senator Lawson sitting next to me, had the chairs. And I'm looking around going, is this how this works? Because I know we spent a lot of time in the month of February, but now we're here to mark it up. So when we got done, I'm like, look, I'm not doing that again. We've got to extend it out
Right.
to have a clear understanding because it's a lot of money.
Well, you should
And
take
a lot of
your
it
time.
really depends on what DFAC comes back. So if DFAC
When do they
comes
meet
back
again?
Monday.
Okay.
So if DFAC comes back, a lot bigger or a lot smaller, based on what the base recommendations are, then there's going to be a whole lot to mark up. But if DFAC kind of falls in line with what was expected, based on what you did in February, then there's not a whole lot to do.
Well, we're going to start with just a couple updates on some bills that we've talked about in previous podcasts. The first one will be SB 249. We talked about that last week. The bill that decriminalized drug paraphernalia. That bill was on the agenda for Tuesday, and it ended up getting pulled. So that's really all the information I have. So it was not heard on the Senate floor. I don't know if it's coming back, but I do know that you had a lot of conversations with some law enforcement people who had a lot of concerns with the bill. That's all the information I have right now on it, unless you have more information.
Well, as you know, it's important that you communicate with folks. And so during the lead up, finding out it was on the agenda, making some phone calls to various legislators was the first thing I wanted to do, was get attention to the folks on the other side to say, I sort of know you, right? We talked. How does this make sense to you? And then also was to reach out to the law enforcement agencies because, it matters to them. It's going to impact how they interact with the individual on the street. You're legalizing drug paraphernalia by default, legalizing its use. And what you're also doing is creating a pathway for state-funded nonprofits to distribute drug paraphernalia.
Right.
That's exactly what it's doing. And that should concern people. It's taxpayer money in the simplest form, handing out a crack pipe. Right? Now, they can come in and call it whatever you want, but that's what it is. And that should conflict with some folks who are looking for logic when it comes to helping an individual sick on the streets. I argue, as we've said before, handing somebody something and leaving them there might make you feel good at that moment, but it doesn't help that individual because you've walked away to return to your environment and they're left there. You're enabling them. And how do I know that? The individual on the street tells you that.
And that's what we've got to do. We should be in the business to help people get away from their addiction, not give them the tools to continue that addiction, for another week or another month or another year.
Yeah, and I talked to you about it. Like, we legalized one needle years ago, and then we came back and we legalized just unlimited needles, however many you wanted. To me, show me the data that shows drug use decreased as a result of those two policies, then maybe we can have a conversation. But it's not. Drug use has gotten worse.
It's even different than that. And I challenge the folks listening from some of these agencies that we're hiring, because I sort of cold call. I just show up, ball cap, jeans, don't nothing. Just want to know what's going on, right? And I'm not trying to be sneaky. I want to appreciate what you're doing. And when you talk about wraparound services, and the wraparound services aren't there, when the only thing there is that needle handout, not even an exchange anymore. And the irony during testimony of 249, it was heard in committee. One of the agencies came up and said, you talk about data. There was no data or evidence to identify how many folks have been lifted from the streets and cured of an addiction. You're never cured of it, but treated for, and then they're in sobriety or recovery of sorts. What they did have data on was something that I stated and we stated on the floor when they went from a one-to-one needle exchange to an unlimited exchange, when we offered up a simple amendment that said, all right, if you're going to do this, how about if we just do maybe 1 to 5, which is still a big number. Bring back 1 dirty, we'll give you 5. And we argued because that's a touch point. Well, guess what happened during the testimony from these folks that are handing out these needles? They must not forgot that we said this. They go, oh, well, the contacts are way down. We had 700 in this 1 month stretch or 3 month stretch, and now we're down to like 250.
Yeah, it's because they can grab them and go now. They don't have to
get
come
a
back.
handful of them.
And I'm like, hello.
Yeah,
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
They're not hiding.
they proved our
from
point.
you.
They proved our point.
Well, yeah, but they didn't know they were doing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I don't know if we will be seeing that again. Unfortunately, I suspect we will. That's kind of my feeling on it.
It's Kensington. Look it up.
Yeah. All right, HB 400, the fee increase package that the governor's office supported, that was signed out of Senate Committee. Senate Executive Committee.
Senate Executive yesterday.
So we should we'll probably be seeing that on the floor.
Yeah, probably will.
Support, right?
What was that?
Unanimous support.
No.
Come out.
No,
One
not
thing-
at all.
Just
No.
kidding.
One thing I
Just
did,
kidding.
one thing I found interesting is I had a meeting with the governor's office last week because we meet with their staff once a week, and they informed me that the governor's office, when they brought this proposal to the House Democrats, they actually only asked for like the general partnerships, limited liabilities, all of that. They wanted an increase from $300 to $350. The House Democrats are the ones who decided to raise it to $400. So I just found that interesting. So they gave him more than he asked for, and I don't know where that extra money that we're going to be bringing in is going to be directed.
Well, I think part of the revenue package, if you remember from the governor's budget, was the LLCs plus a tobacco tax, and I don't think the tobacco tax has the support to pass over there. So they're probably saying, okay, let's not do the tobacco. Let's bring this one up a little bit more so that we can balance it out and
This would
get
make
the
up
get the
for it,
revenue.
essentially.
Yeah,
Could be, but I think we also need to be looking at what Texas and Nevada are doing because they're kind of our competition right now. And what I'm thinking is the governor's office probably realized Nevada is at $350, so they didn't want to be above them. So now we are. And Texas annual fee is $0.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
they
you
have a
get what-
$300 filing fee.
Okay.
And then there's no fee after that.
So there's no fee to keep your LLC?
I looked at it online. It listed all of them. It was the only one that had none.
Huh.
So maybe they make it up in another way.
Yeah,
That'd
possible.
be nice because my bill's due on June 1st.
Yeah,
For my
might-
LLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, depending on when the bill takes effect, you might be paying that new higher fee.
You will be. Yes.
You know, something that's confusing, and Brian, you can do a better job explaining, is that when you see something like a Dell leaving and it's a $3 trillion company or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's not.
That's not the revenue that's coming into Delaware. That's the market cap. So
right.
there was an article that $3 trillion has left Delaware, and people are making a big deal. Well, we have a $6 billion budget with a B.
Yeah.
We're not even close to $1 trillion. So that's the market capitalization. That's the value of the companies that have left Delaware. That's not the revenue that has left the state of Delaware. The big difference between the two.
Now, but it does matter because it's probably a $250,000 fee yearly that they use
Right.
to
Yeah.
stay here in the state, and if you times that by 10 or 12 Dells,
Then it's real money. Yeah.
It's a problem, and that's what we're starting to see, I think, in some form or fashion.
And those are the questions that I'm really going to ask on Monday
Right.
during DFAC.
Good.
Is okay. We know the companies that have left. We know the companies that are coming in. We passed the tax deadline. What kind of companies are these that are coming into Delaware?
matters.
Are they, bottom tier companies, tier 3? Are they tier 2? Are they tier 1? What type of revenue are they paying into Delaware? Are we replacing like for like, or are we not? And that's what we've got to figure out in order to really focus in on what our state revenues are going to be.
Because Delaware has like 3 or 4 main income sources that help pay for everything the state does. This corporate tax is a big one.
It's about 40%. The corporate franchise in Delaware is about 40% of the revenue.
You lose that. You got two options. You're cutting programs,
Mm-hmm.
or you're seeking revenues in other spaces. And like we said, there's only a couple other spaces.
Yeah.
Your wallet is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So we really got to figure that out, and we'll have a better idea hopefully on Monday. Of course, it was a former DFAC chair that asked that question at last DFAC, and there was no clear answer from the Department of State on it. And of course, he was subsequently removed from DFAC.
I assume they will have that information. This DFAC
I'm hoping
meeting.
so. It would behoove them to do so. It would behoove
that
them
needs
to
to be
do so.
demanded if they don't.
Speaking of DFAC, the bill to codify DFAC made it out of executive committee today
Yes.
as well.
Right.
Yeah, so I expect that to be on the floor and voted on in the Senate pretty soon, and then sent to the governor for
Maybe
signature.
next week.
Probably, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
You think he'll sign it?
I don't know. We'll see. Pretty much it's codifying exactly what's in DFAC now, what's in the executive order.
Yeah.
So
Taking executive power away, though.
maybe we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll have to take some bets on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it up on Polymarket.
There you go.
Kalishi.
Ooh.
Kalshi, whatever it is.
All right, two bills we talked about last week that had went around for co-sponsorship and they did not have numbers. So I just want to update everyone, letting them know what the bill numbers are. So if they support them, they can let their legislator know. The Tipped Worker Relief Act of 2026, that is sponsored by Halaski and Richardson. That is HB 386. And that, of course, creates a deduction of up to $15,000 on qualified tips and converts it to a refundable credit for low-income resident earners.
Okay, that's good.
And no tax on overtime. That is Senator Richardson and Representative Shoup. That's Senate Bill 299.
So those are the same provisions that from the federal side
Yes,
on HR1.
this would be this would be at the state level.
Right. Okay.
So they've both been assigned to committee, and hopefully we can get them moving quickly. I have no idea what the support is like. They went out for co-sponsorship.
Do we have fiscal note on them yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We may have, I don't know if Blake can look that up. SB 299, HB 386 might have a fiscal note because it's been out longer. But I do not think there's any Democrats signed on to these as sponsors.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's all Republicans.
Yeah, there wasn't on 299 because I was putting a press release for it together earlier.
So that kind of tells me there might not be support for it. But hey, we got to try.
We do.
there's not support for taxing someone in the state of Delaware who's working more than 40 hours overtime.
Removing the tax on
Removing
that
the
overtime.
tax, right.
Now,
Not
and,
support.
I know.
and look, here's the funny thing about this, the overtime exemption. So you're only exempted on the federal side. So let's say you work 45 hours in a week. So you've got 5 hours of overtime. Where the tax exemption comes in, it is not that straight part of the time for those 5 hours. It's that extra time. So you're only getting tax exemption on the half time. You're not getting,
see.
or
No,
if you're
no.
getting double
Oh, I
time, it's
see.
it's on the above what your hourly rate is. So,
I'll have to look at how this one's written, but I know the synopsis said it creates a tax credit in the amount of $15,000.
okay, that'd be good. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm assuming that there's no support based on the co-sponsorship, but I could be wrong. There might be a lot of support for
Which
it.
is weird because there was pretty wide support for it nationally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it shouldn't really be a partisan talking point. It should just be.
It should not be. You're right.
No, it shouldn't be at all.
Alrighty, Senator Buckson, we have an update on your tint bill. Thought maybe you'd want to give that just so people know where
What's
that
going on
stands.
with that?
Yeah, we've been getting questions on your social media.
Yeah, people are very interested. More people are interested in this topic than I thought.
I think primarily because it impacts us all. We're all driving, you know. There are many folks out there that enjoy the shade, the luxury of having tint. It got held up because there was a misunderstanding between the original legislation and the policing agencies that we had reached out to that had vetted it. And then after a release, realized that they'd made a mistake of sorts, that they had misapplied or interpreted what the percentage change would be. So ensuring that we didn't run legislation that conflicted with our law enforcement officers, I mean, it's a very real statement. I can only imagine to have someone pulled over and walk up onto the vehicle, could be in daytime, could be at night, and have a deeply tinted window or look into it. So you're guessing what's going on. I can feel that. I get that. So we paused, went back, reworked it, and now it's at a 50% threshold, something that all the agencies have expressed support for and an understanding of. So I think it's a very good compromise. It gives the freedom to have tint if you choose, but it also ensures that our men and women and those that are, in that sort of space can somewhat feel safe because you still can see in now.
Mm-hmm.
So anything deeper, you would still have to have a tint waiver for.
Still have to have a tint
Okay.
waiver, right? The
All right.
current law is 70%.
Yeah.
This will move it to 50. 50.
And that's 70%. I think that's where a lot of people get confused. That 70% means 70% of light passes through,
Light.
not 70% of tint.
Yes.
That would be 30%.
And that
of light
was
coming
part of the
through.
misunderstanding
Yes.
originally with the original bill.
And
Yep.
that's what happened. So I think
It was an
folks are
innocent
happy.
misunderstanding.
Be a happy compromise. You can still get a tint waiver if it needs to be darker. But I think for the most part, most people that are just looking for some shade of a different site. I mean, let's face it, most cars already have a tint on the back windows. Right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of going to get into that space. That's
Right.
what you're going to be looking at in all sides now.
Did you find the fiscal note on that one bill? No. It might not. It might not be out yet. So I just thought I'd check in real quick before I moved on. Senator Buckson's tint bill. It has been substituted. We should hopefully get that moving along when we get back. And that did have bipartisan support with
Did they have a
co-sponsors.
committee hearing before or not?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
it literally got released, and then the wheels fell off.
Well, no,
Okay.
we put the press release out, and your social media post blew up, and I think that's when you started getting,
But it was an interesting post because a lot of well-intended, law-abiding Delawareans who would like the right to enjoy it. And what I had to tell them was, I get it, I support you, but
We got to pump the brakes on it
I
for a little
do
bit.
have to understand and appreciate what the men and women wearing that badge are going
Yep.
through.
Absolutely.
Can we come to a compromise? Fortunate enough we were able to do that.
Good. Good.
Another bill that went around for co-sponsorship that I just found interesting. I really haven't taken a position on it yet, and I don't know if you two have seen this. It went out this week. Senator Cruz. It's actually a House bill, so the prime sponsor is Snyder Hall. It requires tap rooms and taverns to keep at least 2 working opioid antagonists on premises at all times, and requires employees who sell alcohol to receive training on how to administer.
Okay. Alcohol anywhere?
Tap rooms and taverns, it specifically states.
So basically Narcan is what
Narcan.
Yes,
yeah,
Narcan.
yeah. So
I don't know how I feel about it. I think one of the things that concerns me, there is the bill does
taverns and
state
taverns.
that they are not liable if something happens, but these are not medical professionals. They don't know. Someone could be experiencing another type
they're
of
not
medical.
first responders.
Exactly. Someone, I know that the thing with Narcan is they're like you should immediately Narcan, then call 911. I get that, but are these employees also trained in CPR? Are they trained in how to administer an EpiPen? So I just,
That's rough.
I guess I want to hear more debate on this to hear where this came from.
you're putting
to
stuff
really-
on people that's not their job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
And why just tap rooms and taverns? Why that very narrow? I mean, there's not a whole lot of tap rooms and taverns in Delaware.
I think what I would need to do is look at the bill and see how they define a tap room or tavern. That would probably be.
Well, we had that conversation on the floor yesterday with the bartending bill,
That's right.
Yes, we did.
which people might want to know. That
Yeah, because that wasn't interesting. Because actually, I totally supported the bill at first, and I probably still do support it. But you definitely made me have a little bit of pause with a question that you asked. So yesterday, a bill was passed in the Senate. I do not have the number off the top of my head. Does anybody remember the number of the bill?
Blake will get it.
Yeah, Blake will get it.
We'll
for us.
throw it on the screen there. Yeah.
But the bill would make it so an 18-year-old can now go behind a bar,
And
bartend, bar back, and all that.
all that.
But like you said, there's a big difference between an 18-year-old going into a Burgers and Brews and doing this, as opposed to an 18-year-old going into the Starbird and
people
doing
need to
this.
appreciate
Not
something.
that we're singling out the Starboard or anything like
Right,
that.
'cause,
That's right.
Let's
We're big
let's say a
fans.
beach bar.
A beach bar.
A beach bar.
Look,
We're big
There you go.
fans
as
of the
I made
Starboard.
known on the floor, I was a mixologist at the Bottle and Cork
Yep.
for several years.
Let's talk about some of those stories, Eric.
Oh, we do not. That's the reason why I don't partake in hard liquor anymore. I'll tell you that. Having said that, but it's important to understand this. I said on the floor, 18-year-old bartending. I'm okay with that, right? My daughter's a bartender. She's 25. I have another daughter that works at the same restaurant. She's 19. It's a restaurant. You know, they're serving food. They close at 9, all those kinds of things. She wants to step behind and serve, fine. It's not a nightclub. But down the road where I used to work at the Bottle and Cork, they've got people lined up waiting to show ID to get in because you have to be 21 to get in so that you can go to a bar where an 18-year-old's serving you liquor.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's why I told them. If somebody, they said, well, then maybe we should have, can 18-year-olds go to war? All right, well, if that's the case, then let's make it legal to drink at 18 because I'm okay. Let's do that. But until then, this doesn't make sense to me, right? And I don't want to pretend that I think you should be drinking at 18. All I'm saying is when you're trying to make logic of it, help me make sense of that one. You're lined up to get in. You can't get in if you're under 21.
Oh, but you're going to
unless
work there. Unless you work there, you can go right in.
Then you can serve beer.
Yeah.
Right.
You can sling it.
Right.
You can walk around with shots.
And if you've been to
serve the shots.
those places late night, woo.
It gets crazy.
I mean, I kind of have a problem with it too. It's just, there are so many places that are 21 only after a certain amount of time. After a certain
That's all
time.
we had to do.
Yeah.
Just
all
make
we
it
had
so
to do.
those places.
That's all I
wouldn't
said.
be-
Let's it's restricted. If you're required to be 21 to get in, then it's not eligible. You can't have an employee working here at that time.
Or just
wasn't hard.
put in hours.
Whatever.
Not after 9 o'clock.
All those things would have been
Yeah.
fine with me, but
Yeah.
But it did pass. It passed both the House and Senate, so it will be effective upon the governor's signature. It will become law.
Yeah.
The next two bills I have are both related to guns. I'm going to start with the gun registry. We talked about that before. It is SB 300, and that's what this bill does. It basically creates a gun registry. And I'm gonna send it over to Matt because he's done a lot of research on this.
Yeah.
Actually,
So-
and he also wrote a really good Substack about
Yeah,
this.
go
so
check that out. DESenategop.substack.com.
Nice plug.
Yeah, that's
Substack
right.
there.
Good job, Dee.
Yeah.
Professional.
She's getting.
Always
she's
thinking.
really picking this up.
so
right.
people listening, what's a Substack and where am I finding it?
Okay, so it's basically
Really?
And we've
it's
actually had
blog.
people say,
What?
"What's a
It's
Substack?"
like a
before.
blog,
Yeah.
It's a
basically.
blog where?
On Substack.
On the
Substack's a
website,
website.
So I got to go to a website or an app?
Both.
Both.
Either one.
Whichever.
Either. Yeah.
If you want to grow the audience, you better be talking to folks.
Well,
that-
to make it
that
easy,
I
go to
don't-
our Facebook page, and
Okay.
they're linked on there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we promote it. Oh yeah,
We promote it.
it's all.
We don't expect people to go looking for it. Just
Yeah.
go to our
Well,
Facebook page. If you're not following us, follow
You
us,
need to follow
and it'll
them,
come up in your
because I
feed.
didn't-
Yeah,
I
there you
don't-
go.
I haven't been on it yet.
I'll
That's
add
not
you
your
to.
fault,
I'll
man.
add you to the list.
You've been missing out on some good reading,
No,
Eric.
not. I get into that. It's a hole. I'm digging out of.
No, well, Senate Bill 300. It's a pretty lengthy piece of legislation.
It is.
24
Yeah,
pages
it's
or
big.
something
It's a
like
big
that.
bill.
So it does more than just a gun registry. I mean, there's a lot of concern out there about how it could affect FFLs and the many of which are mom and pop shops out there. They're not large corporations or anything. So how this could affect
Federal
them.
firearm licensees.
Yes. How this could affect them financially negatively. But the main concern, especially amongst the 2A community and really I think the larger concern in general, is this gun registry that it establishes. Right? So it would require these FFLs to thoroughly document who's purchasing this gun, what gun
They do
they're
that. They
purchasing.
do that anyway.
Yeah, but then after all this is done, I think it's every quarter.
I think so.
Quarterly, they have to turn that information into to the state.
Yeah. Hence the registry piece.
Hence the registry
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah.
And I think you two could, I'm sure, speak to this before. I know you've actually mentioned this on the podcast, but the question is, where does it stop? I mean,
Well, what's the purpose? Why
we've-
does the government want to know how many guns you have? There's a reason for that,
Well, yeah.
and there's a reason we should be paranoid.
when they want to come and take your guns, they know how many. They can
Exactly.
start checking them off.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think it's something we really have to keep an eye out for because there has been bipartisan legislation in the past, right? The FTAP bill. And what does FTAP stand for? The FTAP bill is,
transaction approval process.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
it.
It's basically the state background check.
Yes,
right?
it's the
in addition to the federal
yeah,
NICS.
yeah. So
background
it's
check.
it's the state can do the state system and NICS in one phone call. Yeah.
Which we
And
had in place at one time.
We had in place at one time. It was done away under Governor Markell
Yes.
because he and his administration again, correct me if I'm wrong, believed it was essentially redundant.
Yes.
They felt, well, the feds were doing it, but Senator Hocker and Senator Lawson, so for those of you who don't know, Senator Hocker is an FFL.
Mm-hmm.
He sells firearms at one of his shops. Senator Lawson used to own a small business that did this.
Mm-hmm.
Their argument at the time was, no, there have been many instances where the FTAP program, the state program, came back and found somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Or found
State came back, no, federal came back, yes.
Yeah, flagged them as a person prohibited, but they were missed on the federal side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so,
there are some disqualifying conditions on the state side as well,
right,
that don't necessarily flow up to the federal.
Okay.
Right,
yeah.
right. So, but despite some of the leading Republicans' voices at the time, Governor Markell and his administration did away with it. Well, there was an effort, a Republican-led effort, Senator Hocker, to reintroduce it. That was probably about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't quite go anywhere. I think they established a task force, and then former Representative Larry Mitchell took the bull by the horns, passed the bill. I think it was House Bill 423. I forget what year it was. I think 2021.
So that reestablished.
But anyway, reestablished that. But I say all that to say, you have good policy like that Republicans do support, but then you start creeping into the permit to purchase, the semi-automatic weapons firearm ban.
We don't want people
right.
that shouldn't be getting firearms to get firearms.
But nothing that I can't think of anything we've passed other than FTAP that actually makes it harder for a criminal to buy a gun. It just makes it harder for law-abiding citizens to buy guns. And that's my problem with it.
Yep.
So, don't, why? Here's the why. So, Moms Demand Action came in the other day, right, and met with as many legislators as they could. So, a few from my district asked if they'd meet. I said, I'll meet, sure. So, we met right in there. And I said, explain the bill. And then I asked them a couple of questions. I said, first thing they said that was interesting, they said 151, I guess, registered gun shops or, folks that are able to sell in the state. And I said, of those, how many are, they said less than 20 that have been involved in an infraction of sorts.
A straw purchase or things like that?
Whatever you want to call it, straw purchase, whatever, yeah. And I said, then, because I said, right now, isn't that already illegal? Yes. I said, and you already know who the bad actors are? Yes. Then why aren't we just, and I just used their argument, so why don't we just go after them? Why don't the laws go after them?
Right. And
if the laws aren't affected to go after what you've said are illegal, then we should fix those laws, right? But you're not. This law actually is a blanket law that really punishes all the gun shops that are doing it right, that have a lawful right, a legal right, a constitutional right to do this, and the folks that are doing it at that location. I said, so that's one of my bigger problems. I have a problem with the bill, obviously, but that's a big problem. Let's cure the other side. And then I said, but tell me what it is that they're doing. Is it the gun shop that's doing wrong? Well, no, many times it's an individual. This is the example, and you're more knowledgeable in this space than I am, so help me out. They said, no, I'll give you an example. Tom Smith walked into this gun shop and over the course of 2 months bought 32 handguns, something like that. Okay. And they said, we want that to be a flag. We want that to be a notification that they're doing something wrong. Right? Now, I didn't get into the fact that, well, it's a constitutional right. We don't want to get into the business of counting how many guns I own or you own.
Right.
But that was one argument that they tried to say mattered. The other was straw. They were arguing that meant it ended up on the street and straw purchases occur.
Well, but when somebody makes multiple visits to a gun shop, that's something that's already flagged. And honestly, I know people that have done collecting before that have gotten visited by the feds saying, hey, we saw that you've been visiting gun shops and buying guns lately. What's going on? This is what's going on. Okay. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
So that's important to say.
So, I mean, when somebody does that, if they're showing that type of pattern, those are things that are already being looked at by the central registry, by the central repository, by the ones that are doing the background checks. somebody, if they want to do straw purchases, they'll visit 18 different gun shops. Guess what? Gun shop number 5 doesn't know that they've, visited a bunch of other gun shops. So, this registry that they want to do is not really going to do anything. You're still, the best defense that we have is things like FTAP, where, they know John Smith. Oh, look, here's John Smith again. He's buying guns. He's at this gun store. Well, he was over at another gun store last week getting stuff. What's going on?
Right.
That's where the line of defense is in the systems that are doing the background check, that are running these names on these people. That's where we need to put the investment in. It was right there.
And that's why I thank you for articulating. That's why I said in the meeting, these were a couple things expressed. You had a few bad actors versus the entirety of the system. Then you give me a couple of examples they did as, buying excessive amount or some sort of a straw purchase, visiting different sites. And you articulating, which is what we need to do, a better job. Not a better job. They just need to be able to listen to us. These systems are here. They're in place. If they need to be, if they're not performing, then why? Let's find out why. But more laws, new laws, not the answer. Not the answer. And that's what I argued on the floor last year, the year before that, and the year before that, when they kept bringing stuff in. When these things don't cure what you're trying to cure, what's next? And that's the problem. The next will be the next one.
Yeah.
Then it'll eventually be a registry that kind of decides you don't need more than this many of this thing.
Right.
And we might support, okay, I don't want to say that, but maybe we would be more likely to support gun bills if we were actually charging people properly who have gun crimes, but we don't.
So interesting. So every year,
recently,
every year I ask for that report, and I asked for it on Monday.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be a couple of weeks, but I've asked for the report. One of the things that I asked for this year, especially since SB 300 came out, I want to know how many prosecutions, how many arrests, how many prosecutions have occurred for straw purchasing as well, because that's a data point that we didn't ask for prior. So now I want to know what we're doing in terms of the straw purchase, because there have been newspaper reports on some arrests made for straw purchases. Great.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. How big is that bread box? How, let's quantify that. How many have we prosecuted? How many?
Right. If you have 50 and you've only prosecuted 4.
Right.
Well, let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that, you can't sleep on what you just said, because the impression is Republicans versus Democrats. No to gun. We want absolute gun rights, and we don't care if the guns are illegally being distributed and used in crimes. And that's not true. That's none of that. What we're saying is there's already the tools that have been implemented. Some of them we don't agree with, but that's fine. They're there now. What are they doing right now?
Well,
what are they not doing right now? And you just mentioned it, because when you have crimes that occur where a gun is present and you are pleading that out, and that is 1,000% occurring right now, the criminals on the street, they know these types.
Of course they know.
Yeah.
They know. They talk.
Right?
They know what's going on. Now, we've been talking about FTAP in the systems. I don't think FTAP is running yet.
Last I heard, it wasn't. I don't.
Yeah. I still don't think it's running yet.
It's
so,
crazy.
and we passed this bill
4 years ago.
4 years ago, and it's not up yet. But we're still doing. But we're doing more things on top of that, like the permit to purchase. So I mean,
they
look,
got that. They made sure that was up and running.
and look, I'm going to say, the folks at SBI, they have got so much on their plates right now with stuff. State Bureau of Identification that runs us, but we've got to make sure that we get done one thing before we put something else on them. And I mean, and FTAP is a really good tool that will have measurable results in stopping some of these illegal gun purchases that are out there.
Right. And these gun laws have real consequences. Back in 2023, HB 201, bill was passed that prohibits possession of a firearm in a safe school zone. And a safe school zone is designed as, school building, property, athletic fields, vehicles, things like that. And it made it a Class E felony. Okay. As a result of this, this included private schools.
Yes.
So public schools can hire resource officers. They get state funding to do this. They're protected. Private schools do not receive those funds.
Yeah, and I had a bill out there a couple of years ago to allow private schools to have concealed carry holders do it.
Right.
And that was shot down in committee.
So Senator Buckson has HB 304, which is the Safe Schools Century Act. And I'm going to let you kind of talk about what this does. But we received a lot of calls from private school parents. My cousin actually is a resource officer for Delmarva Christian. It's a large Christian school. He can afford this. But his daughter goes to an elementary school for a smaller private school that does not have the funds for this. Before, they were doing exactly what you said. Mm-hmm. They had teachers who were concealed carry. So basically, this law has made these smaller private schools just sitting targets.
Yeah. More unsafe.
Right. So why don't you go ahead and talk about what HB 304 does?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, that's what it does. Mm-hmm. Folks, listen, our understanding of constables and SROs in our schools, our public schools, are state funded and they're paid for. Nobody argues, regrettably, the necessity, right? We wish that we didn't have them, but we do, right? The costs associated with providing one of those individuals is somewhat it's cost prohibitive to a lot of smaller private schools in the state, especially the lower half of the state, right? And so what this Century Bill basically says is that a district can employ an individual or have a current employee in their district, even if it's just one school, who they can hire to go through the training, concealed carry, the constable training, all the other aspects that are listed in the bill. So you don't just have an individual with a gun, but an individual that's highly trained and skilled that, in essence, you hope you never use. That the reality is, the good thing is that the likelihood will never be needed. But the fact that he or she is there creating a hard target many times is all that's needed for a bad guy to go somewhere else. How do we know that? Look at the record books. Look at the interviews from some of these folks that have shown up and done harm on school campuses. Mm-hmm. They can tell you. They look for a soft target. They retreat when faced with threats, or they end the threat themselves, to themselves, when they know there's a threat in front of them. My hope, my expectation, and I've spoken to several folks on the other side and said, look, appreciate we're not attacking the Safe Schools Act, right? That's settled water. It is what it is. We're just acknowledging that in that legislation, you created a situation where these schools, these very small schools, a private 120-person Mennonite school in a part of the state, lacks the legal right now to defend themselves the same way the elementary school down the street does that's on a public dollar.
Right.
And this is not a public-funded ask. The private schools will pay for this entry themselves. It most likely then will come at a much smaller price tag because they're already employed there doing something else.
Right. So it will be an employee that more than likely pulls double duty.
Would be like a stipend. You're going to hire them to a $10,000. I'm just using a random number, $10K stipend to be the sentry for the school district that year. Right. Because again, you're not acting in a policing duty. Right? You're not doing day-to-day military or disciplinary operations because you have a gun. That's not it is literally to meet a threat with a threat. God forbid that ever happens.
Yeah. Right. If you support this bill, it's very, very important that you email your legislators because I do think this will probably face some resistance. It's HB 304. No, sorry.
Senate
SB,
bill.
Senate Bill 304.
It's a Senate bill.
Yes,
Okay.
it's Senator Buckson's bill.
Okay.
So be sure that you reach out, ask your
What committees
legislator
it
to
in?
support this. Can you check and see what it's been assigned to?
looking right
It
now.
could be executive, could be judiciary.
It's judiciary.
Okay, judiciary.
So you're
just
looking at a
wrote the
member
press
of the
release.
Judiciary Committee. So
That helps. I did talk to Brown today, Senator
Okay.
Brown, about it.
you're getting it on the agenda.
I did.
Okay.
And explained the bill a little bit to him as well. So,
Okay.
hopefully.
Because I remember last time when I ran mine, they put it in education.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's sometimes you just never know. And this time of year, sometimes if committees get burdened with bills,
Right.
sometimes they'll throw something to executives. So you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I wanted to close with, if you all have anything after this, of course, but
No, this is your show.
Senator Coons came in today and spoke with our caucus members, and I wanted to bring this up
In the House
in the
caucus.
House, right? But I wanted to bring this up because this is an area that I'm very concerned about with Social Security, approaching retirement age. I want to know if we're going to have Social Security. And that was one of the questions asked. What are we doing to ensure that we are going to have Social Security for generations to come? And Senator Coons was telling us that Bill Cassidy and Tim Kaine, it's a bipartisan effort. They have created this proposal that would create a new government management investment fund where they would borrow roughly $1.5 trillion initially. And then they would in turn, I guess, invest that into like stocks and in bonds that instead of treasury bonds. And I guess then they would take that money and that's how they would support. I know it has pros and cons. He did acknowledge that.
They did. And of course I was sitting there thinking, okay, well, we're going to print, over $1 trillion more of money. What's that going to do to already inflation that we have here? But then we're going to put $1 trillion plus into the stock market. Is that going to artificially inflate the stock market at that point in time too? I mean, when you're creating money and placing it in different areas for specific purposes, you're not talking about a few $100,000 here and there. You're talking about a serious influx of cash into the economy, into the stock market. Right. What are the effects what are the big economic effects going to be?
And that's all valid concerns. I do know that at least this is something. I don't know if there's any more proposals on the table, but they need to figure this out.
They need to stop braiding the Social Security trust fund. It's a trust fund. It's not a piggy bank that they can just pull out of. But the federal government is now, taking more money out to pay our debt service.
Right.
The interest on our national debt's higher than the defense budget.
Yeah, that's what he said today.
He said that like 5 minutes before he started talking about injecting another $1 trillion or so.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, we've got to do something to keep the Social Security Trust Fund solvent, but I don't know if borrowing over $1 trillion is the way to do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree that it's not ideal, but we got to do something.
What he did say, I was going to say what he did say was true. Like the younger generation, well,
I know.
I'll
feel
speak
bad
for myself.
Yeah.
I don't expect to ever see Social Security. So
that's why you got a state pension.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but come on.
I got to stay on.
If I'm paying into something, I better see the benefit from it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, go.
I don't
try to sue the federal government and get your money back. See how far that goes. Good luck.
Angers me. Hey, we should have done what Bush wanted to do years ago and let us privatize.
I was actually, I tell you, I was a little disappointed. I was really disappointed with that meeting because I came into it expecting to hear about the UFO files.
Yes, that's what we were expecting. We thought we were getting a briefing.
If he's a senior member on what the defense appropriation, I'm sure defense, he's probably seen.
I'm sure. I think he's got
probably
security clearances now. Yeah.
I mean,
So that wasn't
closed door.
We were.
Eric wasn't in there, but I texted him and said, "You're missing it. We're getting a briefing on the
UFO files." Yeah.
And then he came walking in.
It was like he came barging in after she sent that text.
He came in like Kramer did to Jerry's apartment. Bam! Here he is.
Here, talk to me about these things. Where are they landing?
As soon as he walked in, I'm like, "Oh crap! I hope he knew I was kidding."
Yeah, no. No, I mean, come on, it's the talk of the town up there.
Yeah.
It's Epstein files or UFOs. It's one or the other. It's what they're talking about. So I thought he was going to drop some knowledge.
Who really killed Kennedy? He was just laying it all out there, and you were late, so
he left me hanging.
You got the boring. You got the boring stuff.
I got the boring stuff.
Yeah, you got the Social Security talk.
Yeah. No, I wanted to comment. I was going to, as I told you, ask him. With respect, we all sit here as elected officials, and most likely, although maybe Senator Pettyjohn wins by greater than a 60-40 split, most elections are around 60-40 when it's in dominant. So, in his case, Senator Coons, he probably had 200,000 Delawareans that didn't vote for him. But kudos to him, he had a significant amount that did. What is my point? My point is, when you are talking about national issues, whether it's on social media, newscast, or whatever, words matter, and statements you make matter. And remember, there's 200,000 folks, and some of those folks want to support you. But when you say inflammatory type comments, when you sensationalize things at the national level that don't resonate with many who you represent, it's like you're sticking the middle finger at us. You're just thumbing your nose at us. So that's what I would like to say to him if I was if we had time, it would be just to say, look, you have every right to be you. I'm just a lowly little state senator. But maybe next time think about it. Does it have to be so brash or inflammatory? Because you're not that way behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But that's the national narrative right now, and that's look, both sides. They just try to demonize the other, and it's
can only deal with the one we have.
We don't see that as much here in Dover at Legislative Hall as you do over. I said not as much. I didn't say it all.
Not as much.
But you see it all the time, depending on which cable news channel you tune to. CNN, Fox, MSNBC.
And there's no desire to work together, because as soon as one of them makes a deal, the other will come out and be like, oh, well, we won and they gave us. It's like people are so sick of the childish temper tantrums we are seeing at the federal level. Get to work together, and grow up.
Yeah,
That's what
we
I
need
say.
to be working together
To all of them.
Yeah. Well, that is one thing I found fascinating about the meeting, and I won't go into details because it was closed door, but there were some areas of disagreement, some questions that a few of our members raised, and he gave, I thought, reasonable answers to those questions.
Yeah,
that's what I liked about the senator.
But the thing is, I'm not saying just him, but you'll see them on CNN or whatever throwing those inflammatory remarks.
That's what I don't like about the senator.
Yeah, right. Because we specifically asked about the
what
SAVE
I don't
Act.
like.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, one thing that we did agree on is the fact that his staff is phenomenal.
Yeah, that is. We all have to say that.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Krista Brady.
Yeah.
She's
it is
great.
true. When I was a legislative assistant, I never reached out to the other two federal members.
If we
just went
I do
to
want to
Chris
give
Coons'
right.
office,
I want to give kudos to Senator Coons' office, because I think it's important that we do that. Senator Coons' office has the best constituent services.
Yeah.
That there is. Like, we always work through them, and he does take care of his constituents regardless of the fact we don't agree politically. I can't take that away from him.
Right.
And I would like to invite the other two offices to match their level of intensity.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they can't or that they won't. I'm saying...
Now, to be fair, I didn't work as an aide under, obviously, Sarah McBride because she's
That's
new.
what I mean.
So I don't
Right.
know what her office is like. I can't speak
might
for
need
her
to
office.
reach out, give it a go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am on that.
Yeah. All right. Wrap it up.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Too.
Again, the Deanna Killen Show.
Hey, I have to get a new sign, I guess, made.
Yeah. For the record, with Deanna.
We'll get
Wait, I think I have a graphic here, don't I?
You know what?
we're not going to show.
No, we're not going to show that.
Okay. All right.
If you show that, I quit.
Well, you can fire me. Yeah, so we'll be back next week, halfway through this 3-week sprint once we get done next. We'll be back with another episode. I'm sure more pressing topics will be on the agenda, but I think we have done it.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. See you next week.
Till next time, kids. Peace.
And thank you for listening. Right, your mom always wants us to give us
That's
the.
right. That's right.
Thank you.
She does always want us to say that.
For the Record is recorded and produced by the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus. You can find us with the DE Senate GOP handle on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Threads. Discover more about our caucus on our website, senategop.delaware.gov.